In October, everyone around the world shows up for people affected by breast cancer, providing vital support every way they can. However, this support is not given in the remaining part of the year. Why so? Well, our guest, Abigail Simon-Hart, is a breast cancer survivor and co-founder of the Breakon Foundation, which is advocating for an all-year-round support and is here to tell us why. Abigail, thank you for joining us on the morning show. I hope I mentioned the name of that foundation correctly. Breakon. Abigail, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you so much.
As we said in that introduction, we're all aware that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it's not a disease that is detected or treated within those 4 weeks alone. It's something that many people, millions of people around the world have to face year-round. So when we talk about awareness, I'm sure that you're very much in support of the month itself, but how can we make sure that once October draws to a close, which it will today, people don't forget about how important cancer awareness is?
I think one of the really important things in breast cancer is the fact that we don't have a lot of survivors talking. We end up with the same set of survivors, myself and a couple of other ones that are visible. And as long as you have a situation whereby survivors are ashamed, there's a lot of stigma still surrounding breast cancer. So as long as survivors aren't coming out to show they survive, it becomes very difficult to maintain momentum. So what happens in October? We're celebrated, tokenized to a certain extent. Everybody's ready to throw a bit of money, conscience money at breast cancer, just to keep everybody quiet. But people are scared of paying for breast cancer all the year round because they're not sure if people are going to survive. And so a lot of people are surviving, but then they want to get on with their life. They want to get on with their life because there's this, like I said, there's a stigma that's still surrounding breast cancer patients. So it's important that we get into a screening culture, first of all. And we screen healthy people. The whole idea of screening is not that you get people who are already showing signs of disease, is that you screen early enough, and the screening has to be all year round. So you're getting the cancer early enough, such as in my kind of case, that has allowed me to be cancer-free now. So it's really about encouraging a screening culture. In Europe, when you reach a certain age, they'll actually send you a letter to say, please come for your screening. So everybody needs to now get into this culture of, I must go at least once a year or whatever to get myself screened. And we really need to improve on the screening. I think and talking about it and getting cancer survivors to say, okay, look, I had cancer, I'm not ashamed, I'm alive. And when people see people can survive the disease, they're more likely to give money towards treatment, give money towards infrastructure, and help with funding as well.
You are a cancer survivor.
Yes.
Talk to us about your journey. You know, you were diagnosed with breast cancer in 2015, and 6 months later, your mom died from leukemia. Can you share with us your journey and how that happened?
So basically, I grew up with a mother who had cancer 4 times. 4 times the doctors told her she will die, 4 times she beats cancer. And she lived for 33 years after the last terminal diagnosis. And I always tell this story because it's important to understand that cancer is not a death sentence. Even in you see stage 4 cancers living 10, 15, 20 years now. So my mother had cancer. So I was already very, very, very breast aware. So what that meant is I had my first mammogram at the age of 29 because I had a breast lump that was discovered. Fortunately, it was benign. So I had a culture of going for screening. And I remember I had a mammogram in 2000. My mother passed away in 2013. And in 2014, I had a mammogram done. And they told me it was fine, but my gut was saying there's something wrong. And I always tell people, listen to that little voice. Listen to, some people say it's the spirit, some people say it's gut. Listen to that voice. And I just wasn't comfortable. And I remember looking in the mirror that day and I said to myself, if ever I got cancer, I would take both breasts off. I was going to the UK on holiday. I had private insurance. I decided to redo the mammogram. And that morning, even though they hadn't confirmed it, my gut told me I had breast cancer. I went in, had the mammogram, magnified mammogram, biopsy, and then the next morning I got the phone call that said, well, I hear you're going back to Nigeria, you can't go back until you see me. It's my day off, come to my house. So when a breast surgeon tells you, come to my house on my day off, you're sure that he's not coming to come and drink a cup of tea or anything like that. So I went, and I remember when he just said, I have good news or bad news, tell me which one you want first. I said, give me the bad news. He said, bad news, you have breast cancer. Good news, we got it early. And I just said, take both breasts off. 5 days later, I had the double mastectomy, and 7 years down the line, I'm cancer-free. So I always tell people, listen to your gut. The challenge we have in Nigeria is that cancer is coming in very early women, breast cancer, and it's very aggressive. So you find, officially the books say have a mammogram at the age of 40, but we're seeing it in 20-something-year-olds, in 30-something-year-olds, in 18-year-olds, even a case of a 13-year-old. These are not women that are entitled to mammograms or breast screening. Many of them are likely to be told, well, you're only 18, it can't be cancer. So I always tell people, listen to your gut. It's my gut that saved me. The fact that I didn't accept what was told to me, I knew something was wrong. So I always tell people that when you have a gut feel, please, 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 even if they tell you it's fine, look for a doctor that will listen to you, because that's what saved my own life.
Wow.
Okay, Abigail, I mean, I appreciate your emphasis on screening, because diagnosis is key. But the situation in Nigeria, not many women will have the sort of opportunity that you had, when you had to travel abroad for further examination, etc. How equipped are we in Nigeria? There are many people who, the reason why they are not coming out possibly is because, the same old story, So in terms of, doctors, in terms of facilities, equipment, are we really there? Or is only the privileged ones, sorry to use that word, that can...
Sadly, I think for the population that we have to tell the truth. The truth, I mean, we can't mask this. We do not have enough personnel. We do not have enough infrastructure. I think we have 13 radiotherapy machines in the country.
In the whole of Nigeria?
Yeah, I think it's about 13, and I'm not sure all are working. So if you do the numbers, it doesn't look encouraging. However, it's about early detection. If you get the cancer early, then the treatment is less expensive. For example, I did not do chemotherapy or radiotherapy. Because the cancer was stage 1, I took the decision to have to take both breasts off. And I was offered chemotherapy, but when we weighed out the risk, the side effects of the chemo versus the benefit, it did not make sense. And that's the importance about having informed patients. Don't just ask questions, research your thing. Don't just accept medication. People will have chemotherapy, they cannot tell you the name of the drugs they're on. So to go back to your question about the situation in Nigeria, screening is still the way to get it early, and screening of healthy women. The issue is that if you're just telling people when you have breast lump, come, then all you're doing is you're getting all the late cases. Do you know what I'm saying? So if we have screening as a matter of principle and process in this country, we'll get the cancer in earlier stages that are treatable. And therefore, funding is always going to be an issue, but you don't need as much money. But funding clearly is a huge problem. We are struggling to get funds for our patients because of the sheer cost of treatment in this country. So we cannot move away. We need to have a robust health insurance scheme that pays for it. In the UK and places like that, you have cancer care on your national health insurance scheme. So it's important that we somehow get into this thing of funding. There has to be funding. If we're going to increase screening, we must increase infrastructure, and there must be funds available. Otherwise,
So what are you doing for fundraising at this point?
Fundraising, we have events. We just reach out to individuals and companies asking for help, and that's just basically all you can do. And it's a challenge, because, like I said, people really don't think that cancer is worth donating to because of the poor prognosis, the poor survival rates in Nigeria. So it is really, really tough for all NGOs who are trying to raise funds for treatment, but somebody has to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the UK for an example, and the fact that being there effectively saved your life, I can imagine that you understand that doesn't happen by accident. You've got things like Cancer Research at UK, Macmillan Trust, esteemed charities that everyday people donate to. You've got marathons that people run and take part in. The connection between the public and cancer is very, very strong in the United Kingdom. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to devise a plan that we can see that mirrored in Nigeria, because first and foremost, as you rightly know, breast cancer doesn't only affect women. Men too can be diagnosed with breast cancer. So how do you think, is it a private sector approach? Is it a governmental approach that will need for us to change the way society, first of all, looks at cancer and allows many people to donate naturally to this great cause?
I think it's everybody. It's government. It's the religious community. It's everybody. You can't function in silos, and I think that's part of the problem. Is that we're not functioning as a unit. It has to be government. It has to be private sector. It has to be individuals. Everybody has to work together. And if you're not careful, what you find is that you have lots and lots of NGOs, lots and lots of people doing things, but we don't have a joint approach. So we're not making as much impact because you don't have a collective push. There's quite a few organizations that are coming together now to try and, like Nigerian Cancer Society and co, they're trying to now bring everybody together to speak with one voice. But it's really to address the stigma and talk about it. Because the stigma is still very, very, very much. In Europe, they've gotten to a point whereby everybody's so aware about their body and the fact anybody can get cancer. And I think we need to push this agenda that every single person sitting here has the potential of delivering cancer. Nobody can discriminate. Yeah, exactly. Cancer, religious, it doesn't care whether they're Christian, Muslim, young, old, rich, poor. And I think once people start to appreciate that cancer can affect anybody, maybe they'll be a little less selfish about giving, because they know that they could be the next one. Their mother, their son, their daughter could be the next one.
All right, Abigail, I know that nutrition is an important aspect of treatment, pre and post. Talk to us about how this works. Is it about feeding less or feeding well? How does that play out, nutrition?
It's definitely about balanced diet, because that's a very common thing we find in the foundation. We get lots of phone calls. Oh, but they said that if I drink hot water and lemon, then it will cure my cancer, or coconut oil and hot water. And there's so much fads that a lot of cancer patients are petrified of eating. I mean, they want a piece of cake. And what they've read is that sugar causes cancer. It makes the cancer to grow. Panic, panic, panic. And what they'll do, eat everything except for that piece of cake. And at the end of the day, eating that piece of cake would probably have done them less harm than, exactly. So it's about a balanced diet. Less refined food. And less refined food, this is not good for you, period. I think the most important thing, if you're a cancer patient or you're recovering from cancer, is eat a healthy, balanced diet. Lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, less processed food. And that's more for your general health and well-being, and so you don't put on too much weight, because obesity is a risk factor for cancer. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's really about living a healthy life. It's not about a long list of what you cannot eat. It's really about eat a healthy, balanced life. You have lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, less of the carbohydrates and the red meats. You know what I'm saying? More of the fish and things like that. So it's really about balance. I really don't like it when people start giving, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. Because really, how sustainable is that? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? How sustainable is it where you have and then people go and download stuff that talks about blueberries and raspberries, and how many people can afford blueberry and raspberry? You know what I'm saying? So it's really about eating lots of greens. Nigeria has lots of wonderful vegetables and things like that we can eat, so.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about treatment options. I heard you say, most people you ask, they don't even know what type of treatment they're on, the name of their drugs and all of that. What do you make of natural therapies as opposed to chemotherapy or, the conventional cancer
I think that you have to be very careful with holistic, because we have a lot of people who seem to think that going holistic and these are people with aggressive cancer. I think the important thing to understand about cancer, everybody's body behaves differently. There's no one size fits all for cancer. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. Some people come and say, I'm going to go holistic. I don't want to go down the conventional way. And you need to be a bit cautious, because I personally don't know anybody who's done purely holistic that has survived. Because in a lot of cases, they're quite aggressive cancers. And by the time they change their mind, it's too late.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that, I would never say that don't do holistic or don't do. I think it's really a matter of understanding your body and what really works and making an informed decision. It's about making informed decisions. There's some people who are so unwell that the chemotherapy is actually not going to be beneficial. And what you need to understand about cancer is about quality of life during treatment. If your cancer is very aggressive and you're terminally really ill, continuing to bombard your body with toxic chemicals may not be the way to go. You maybe like with my mother eventually passed away from leukemia, and what happened was that she was not going to benefit from treatment anymore. So when we talked about it, the decision was to manage the symptoms and let her have quality of life and dignity in death. So I think what we really need to understand is that with cancer, you have to look at it for each patient. So holistic is, you can do holistic together with chemo. Because there is some benefits. There are certain areas of holistic that can be done together with chemotherapy. But I'd say that go only the holistic way. I think people need to be a bit careful. There's a lot of fads. And when you have cancer, you're desperate. A lot of people are being promised. I've seen stage 4 metastatic cancer being told that if they take all these shark's fin, this bicarbonate of soda, they'll survive. They abandoned everything else. And they all passed on. So I'm not saying that holistic isn't beneficial. There are people who have done well on it.
Yeah.
So I cannot sit down there and say, oh, don't go holistic. But what I'm saying is, please be informed. Discuss with your doctors, discuss with your treatment team, and make an informed decision. Yes, that's it. It's about information, empowering the patient.
In as much as we've discussed that anybody can have cancer, I'm sure also that genetics do play a role. So when we look at your own personal example, the fact that you grew up with a mother who had cancer 4 times and beat it 4 times, you were already predisposed to the chance that it could also be an actuality for yourself, which ended up being the case. When you speak to your own family about preventative care or making sure you look after yourself, what do those conversations sound like? And further, because you have had a double mastectomy, for women who are watching this, how can you talk to them about how making that sacrifice isn't a loss of womanhood? What was your journey to getting to this point like?
Okay, let me speak about the mastectomy part of it. I think the most important thing when it concerns cancer is life first. The good thing is that there's options of reconstruction, etc. If you leave the cancer very late, you reduce your options because then you cannot reconstruct. There'll be nothing to reconstruct with. And so I've had women tell me, oh, but if I remove my breast, my husband will leave me. And what I tell them is that when you're dead, your husband is going to move on. He'll cry, oh, maybe if you're lucky, cry for a year or 2. But he will move on. The brother needs to move on. Somebody needs to take care of his kids. So what I tell people is that, look, focus on beating the disease first. If it means that you have to give up your breast and you're alive, then you can beat the cancer, then you can have options. I did not reconstruct. I wear breast prosthesis, which I don't have a problem with. I wasn't prepared to do surgery because I wanted to have breasts back. You know what I'm saying? But that's my personal decision. And every woman is different. People like Angelina Jolie removed hers and she put hers back, which is all well and good. Mine was, if they're going to kill me, take them off, man. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the important thing is to look at life first. And breasts don't make a woman. They don't. A woman is so much more. It's about nurturing, taking care of your family, etc. So we need to move away from this, if I don't have breasts, I'm not a woman. It's not true. So I think it's really about, and that's where women come in talking about mastectomies and talking about it. In Africa, breasts epitomize a woman. So you've got this thing in your head that, if you take your breast off, you're not a woman. And I tell people, no. I tell people that, look, you're worrying about if you remove your breast, your husband will leave you. Women who have breasts, their husbands are still going. You know what I'm saying? So we need to understand that it has to be life first. When you're alive, you have choices. When you're dead, you don't. And as I said, people will move on. Because I grew up with a mum who had cancer, I've always been very vocal about it. And as soon as I was diagnosed with cancer, everybody knew. And anybody who cared to know. One good thing about cancer, it helps you to clear your address book in your phone. You know what I'm saying? Because what you find is that some people that you think are very close will suddenly become unavailable. And then the people that you thought weren't your friends are the ones that rally around. So it's really nothing like trauma or tragedy to really help you to select who your friends are. So my family, we talked about it. Fortunately, we did the BRCA test. I don't have the BRCA gene. So the breast cancer that I got had nothing to do with the fact my mother had breast cancer. Thank God. Do you know what I'm saying? But that does not mean that my sons could not get it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why, because as you know, men get breast cancer. So my sons are very, very aware. My husband's aware. Everybody is aware about it. But I think it's almost to the extent I talk too much about cancer in the house. So I don't think, and they're very supportive and they follow me on a lot of things. So I think everybody in my family and everybody who cares to know me know that I'm very passionate about destigmatizing cancer and making people realize that it's not discriminating, so we shouldn't.
Right.
Let me ask just a quick one before we leave, which is about misinformation that is spread around quite often. I know you've spoken so brilliantly about stigmatization, but then when you encounter viral messages, videos, etc., about how, for example, boyfriends or husbands should treat their partners' mammary glands and stuff. There are so many things that stuff that will be good for orgies type of trendy news. They basically encourage you that, in order for your spouse or your partner not to have cancer, this is what you're expected to do. You know what I'm talking about. I struggle to say how much of...
You can say it, Steve. Go ahead. Everyone knows what you're about to say.
How much of misinformation is contained in these type of messages?
There's always going to be a lot of misinformation. It's I think one thing I can tell you that is slightly linked to your misinformation is that in a lot of cases where breast cancer has been found, it's been found by the boyfriend or the partner because, as you know, men like breasts. And most women don't check themselves. So if a man is familiar with your breast, he will notice when there's a lump.
Right.
So, I mean, if women don't want to check themselves, they can get their husband to check themselves. And I'm not saying go out and check somebody else's wife or somebody, you know what I'm saying? So, but the reality on ground is that for quite a few women, they did not notice. It was I'm not saying self-examination is extremely important for women, but in a lot of cases, actually been the partners who are very familiar with their breasts that actually realized that something was wrong. You know, so...
Really quickly, is that the same with men too?
I think with men it's more of a matter of letting men know and informing it, because I don't think that women generally check their men's chest for lumps. So I think it's probably not a bad thing now that we're on TV to say women when they're there be checking their own breasts as well, because it doesn't discriminate. And there are cases, I think it's about 1% of male breast cancer. So definitely, I mean, even in the foundation now there's one particular gentleman who has male breast cancer. And if you notice, no male came out in October.
In Nigeria?
Yes, yeah. No male came out to talk about breast cancer in Nigeria. Men don't talk about their health, talk less of saying they have breast cancer. It's almost like double whammy with stigma. You have breast cancer and you're a man, and then you also have breast cancer or have cancer. Third is you have cancer. So yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of misinformation out there. Be careful with Google, because Google churns out the truth and also lies.
That's right.
There's lots of fantastic, there's a lot of these medical hospitals who have links online. So you're always better off going to a hospital link to get information, or people, of course, can call us. But it's always good to make sure your source of information, because some people just thrive on being mischievous.
So when they say that do more with your mouth in order to save somebody of a cancer, is that correct or is misinformation?
If it's do more with your mouth in inverted commas, I think that's misinformation. I think hands are better.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Abigail.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.